guest is from Lock Haven, Pennsylvania. She's been quilting for more than 20 years and has recently had her The Tree of My Life quilt featured in Quilt magazine. She's a member of the American Quilters Society, Centerpieces Quilt Guild, and the Clinton County Peacemakers, and the Tyadotin Quilt Guild. Please welcome Cecilia Macia. Hi, Cecilia. How are you doing?
How are you? Nice seeing you.
Great. Now, you use a different technique of quilting, something called the stab method.
Yes.
Can you explain what that is and why it's different?
Well, the stab method is done with one stitch at a time.
Okay.
And most quilters in central Pennsylvania quilt with a running method where they run and do a couple stitches. And with this method, you go one at a time. It's a little time consuming,
But probably very precise.
but it's very precise and you can achieve a very tiny stitch.
Okay.
And it's also good for other things like going over seams. So you don't have any constrictions when you're stab quilting. You can quilt just about anywhere.
Okay. And you also had mentioned at one point for people who have carpal tunnel syndrome from quilting for many years.
It's especially good because there's no stress at all in your hands
Right.
or in your body because you're going like this and then under. So with the other one, you're sort of forcing your hand. So it's very good for people who are suffering that problem. This is an alternative way of quilting.
Great. Now you have a number of lovely pieces here today, and this one in particular, this is your Mariner's Compass. Okay. And if we can get a close-up look at the stitches, you can tell how tiny they are, and your use of colored thread is just gorgeous.
Yeah, that's sort of unusual. Most people quilt with the same thread, the theory being that you don't see the mistakes that way.
Right.
But with a colored thread, the design really comes out.
Right. Okay. Now, how do you choose your quilting patterns? Like this one, you have. I see a lot of nautical designs.
Well, since this is a quilt with a lot of Mariner's Compass, and there's 6 of them, and they're all a little different, even though the fabrics coordinate. I picked nautical motifs. For example, this is a shell. I don't know if you can see this here. And this is a wave. And then we have the ropes
And the anchor.
And then in the center, there's the wheel, I guess, what you use to move the boats around.
Okay. Let's just bring this one over, and your next piece here, I'm going to plop that over there. This is beautiful, wall hanging. And what is this called?
This is, it's a kaleidoscope, and it's a kaleidoscope pattern. And again, you can see here the quilting design, and
your stitches are just so tiny.
Yes, you can do a lot. With the stab method, you can really do a lot of little stitches. The only disadvantage is that if you don't really go straight down and come straight up, your stitches in the back can look like duck feet, they call them, or bird feet.
But right about now, I've looked at one of the back of your quilt, and it looks almost as nice as
but it's 24 years of doing it.
Yeah, lots of practice. Now this is nice. This is your flying geese, a variation.
This is my flying geese, and this is from a new technique of soft edge piecing. And you know, a lot of quilters know the flying geese motif, but I did this, and again, the quilting is here. And in this case, I just quilted around the fabric pattern because when the patterns are so rich, you don't need a quilting template. You don't need a quilting design. This whole wall hanging has been quilted with no templates because I just go over the design or over the feather. So the fabric dictates your design.
How long did it take you to quilt this piece?
This one, I think about maybe, I don't really remember, maybe 5 or 6 months. The big quilts from start to finish take me 2 years.
Right. Oh, now you do entirely everything by hand.
Everything is by hand.
You don't even touch a machine.
There isn't even nothing. Even the back, if the back has to be sewed together, it's done by hand. That's my thing. I enjoy doing everything by hand.
Okay. Do we want to give a demonstration of your stab quilting?
Yes, sure. Okay.
Now this is a neat hoop.
This hoop is great for this kind of quilting because you have a lot of space under, so your hand can move freely.
Now,
and because I am right-handed, I have my right hand
Underneath.
under the hoop,
And
right?
that's what you call your main hand.
Right, because I don't have eyes there.
Okay.
And on top, I have my eyes, so I have my worst hand on top. So
Okay,
my
that makes
good
sense.
hand, I'm sorry, my good hand under, my bad hand on top. So, I don't know if you can
do it a little bit this way so the camera can get a
So
good
basically, I'm going, and when I'm under, I sort of test it. I test it, and then I go in, down.
So it's really not too much different than needlepoint in a way.
In a way, it's like any kind of sewing or embroidery where you're going in and out. And once you do it for a while, you build a rhythm, and then your stitches really come out nicely.
Okay.
And the bottom, basically, I don't know if you can't see, but I'm almost testing it until I see the needle poke up in the right spot that I have. So you have a lot more control with this method than with the other one, because in the other one, you've got a straight needle dictating where you're quilting. So for example, when you go on a curve, it's really hard. This is very easy to go over a curve, to go over tight circles.
And what kind of needles do you use?
Okay, I use number 7 sharp.
Okay, so you don't use a between.
Needles. Right, the betweens are very tiny because the other quilting method pushes, and I need a needle that I can hold.
Pull through.
So I use a 7 sharp, and I don't use very thick batting, because the thicker the batting, the harder it is to control your stitch.
Right.
But that happens with all kinds of quilting.
Okay. Now you're famous, the Tree of My Life quilt in the studio today, and I think this is just lovely. It's over here on the side, and okay, it's dancing a little bit over there. Hey, live television.
Dance. It's full of leaves and flowers.
It certainly is. Is there a history behind this Tree of My Life quilt?
Well, I always wanted to make a tree of life, and I did it at a point of my life when I was a little down, and I wrote a poem about it. It inspired me a lot because I said that I grew like the quilt, and I flew like the birds, and I blossomed like the flowers in it. So it has a lot of meaning for me. And it's a combination of flowers that were made, that were pieced together and appliqued, and just flowers and leaves that I cut from fabrics.
Okay.
And that I just appliqued. And what also is special about it is that then it's all embroidered.
That really makes it to me. I mean, it's just lovely.
And that's what adds to it, is the embroidery.
It certainly does. And the butterflies flying off into the borders. It's really neat. Now I see you used a lot of colored thread in there as well, and the quilting designs are flowers, and just beautiful.
And because everything has to echo, things have to go together, or they just don't work well.
Right. And what are you working on now, Cecilia?
Right now, I am making another tree. It's got a lot more animals. It's hard to find fabric with birds, but I found some fabric, and in this new quilt that I'm making, I was lucky enough that a friend of mine gave me a fabric with a parrot. And the parrot had been my pet as a young girl, so it means a lot to me.
Good. Now we have one other quilt in the studio here today that we want to show our viewers. And this is your signature.
This is my motif, is the willow.
Okay. And if we can get a close-up of that, this is just wonderful. This is made entirely appliqued, you see, and then you did the embroidery on the top. And is this kind of you have a symbol?
This is my logo because I have willows in a lot of quilts I made. The very first quilt I made many, many years ago had a willow, and then I have a lot of quilts with willows, and I have a couple wall hangings. And maybe in the back, I don't know if you want to show.
Sure.
The back was quilted, echoing the movement of the willow.
Okay.
So.
Well, this is certainly beautiful. Cecilia, I'd like to thank you for being on today's show.
Thank you
You've
for
been
having me.
wonderful.
It's been great.
It's been lovely. So I'd like to just take a moment to thank you for tuning in to Pennsylvania Quilts. I'd like to thank all of the quilters who came in to share their secrets today, and I'd also like to thank Antoinette Hall and Sylvia Apple, whose quilt you see hanging in the back of the set, and of course to Spectre Wood for providing the beautiful furniture. But most of all, thank you for having an interest in the art and the craft of quilting. Whether you're a seasoned expert or just starting out, you'll find that quilting brings people together from all walks of life to one common ground. Happy quilting.
That's great. I did.